Hey everyone, I'm Joe, and today it's time for me to talk about my September 2016 reading wrap-up. September was a really good reading month. I read 12 books in total, which is pretty average for me. I read a reasonable variety of genres, not as much as sometimes because there did seem to be, for no particular reason, it was just random chance, but I read quite a lot of science fiction this month. And frankly, I'm actually surprised because normally I try to vary it because I tend to get a bit fed up if I read too many science fiction in a row. This month, I'll just get reading science fiction after science fiction, and everything was really, really interesting. So it worked out really well. I normally split my wrap up in half, part 1 and part 2, part 1 being mid-month and part 2 being now. However, due to a few things that I was doing, namely Dance Fest, which was exactly in the middle of the month, that affected my ability to film current things like reading wrap-ups. So this is a full month wrap-up, so it might be a bit longer than sometimes, although frankly most of my videos, especially wrap-ups, tend to be a bit long, but I'll try to keep it short. Anyway, now I'll get straight on to talking about the books. The first book that I read was Way Station by Clifford Simak. This is a science fiction book published in the mid-70s, I believe. I will just double check. I should have checked this before. Nope. Actually, it's published in 1964, so I was off by a full decade. This, and indeed Clifford Simak, is well known within science fiction. He's not so popular nowadays, not mainstream obviously, but within science fiction he's quite a significant name, and this is a fairly significant book within the genre. The plot line of this is relatively simple sounding, although it's not quite as simple as it appears. Same as other books, and it is about a guy called Enoch Wallace, who was an American Civil War veteran. He is now apparently ageless and virtually immortal. He's living on a little farmhouse in the middle of America somewhere, in sort of farmland type area with various neighbours. He keeps to himself, and his neighbours aren't normally that bothered about him, despite the fact that they are aging and he just seems to be the same day in and day out. It's weird, but because he keeps himself, they were okay with it. The reason for his agelessness, however, is because he is essentially a sort of a gatekeeper for a way station, hence the name of the book. This is for the purposes of aliens. Aliens that are all around us. There's multiple different species all over the galaxy and our solar system and the greater universe. You get the idea. They can travel from one side to the other to sort of, on whatever reasons aliens travel for, same with us basically. Sometimes it will be work, sometimes it will be a holiday, and they can't, however, travel in massive distances using wormhole technology in one go. Wormhole technology doesn't quite work like that, so they have to do it in small hops, hence why they need way stations to sort of jump between. So imagine a long haul flight basically, and the plane needs to land, refuel and move on because you just physically can't do it in one go to the other side of the world. Similar concept. And he comes across a few issues in the book. Some of the aliens he likes and gets on with. Sometimes there are some slight issues with them, but nothing significant. And however, it's the humans in the surrounding area. Some of them do get very curious as to why he's apparently never seems to have to do a lot. He just seems to live there. He never seemingly has to farm or anything to keep up the rent or anything. So everybody's highly curious, but nobody wants to pry too much other than one or two people. And this leads to some interesting situations, let's say. I don't want to go too much into the specifics of the plot because it will give away spoilers. But it's a really interesting book. The ideas are interesting. It's short, fast, but the ideas are very well written and it's extremely thoughtfully written. Frankly, I'm very happy that I've read this because it's just well worth reading. I mean, it's only little as well. So it only takes about 3 hours at most to read. And basically, if you have the time and you want to read something fairly significant within the science fiction genre and to the history of science fiction, I would suggest this because it's just short, fun and interesting. Which, frankly, what else do you want? The second book is of Sand and Malice Made by Bradley Beaulieu. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly, though I could be mistaken. This is a prequel book to his book that he released last year, which was quite popular on BookTube, called The 12 Kings of Sharakai. This has the same main character as that book, I believe. I haven't read that book though, so I could be mistaken, but the character in this is at least important in that book. And that is a character called Cedar. She is a young girl who happens to be a pit fighter, and the plot is relatively simple. It is that she's a pit fighter. She gets the attention of a sort of demonic type presence who inhabits this particular person, and there's an ongoing issue. This person does not like Cedar for certain reasons, and they would quite like it if Cedar is dead. So, and there's some sort of various events. The city where it's held is a sort of a dusty sort of desert type city, kind of Middle Eastern. You get the kind of impression from maybe Far Eastern Europe. The world building is really good. The characters are really well developed. The only thing that let it down a bit for me was the overall plot, and some of the events in it were quite predictable. There was nothing new particularly in the book. It was this evil demon wants to kill this person, and then they end up having to sort of go in the desert to sort these things out, and there's life or death situations, and there's other people at danger where Cedar wants to try and not let them get harmed. It's good, it's well written, but they're a little bit predictable. But I'll still recommend it though if you're interested in fantasy. I think this is classed as young adult fantasy actually, in fact, as well. Next up is Obelisk by Stephen Baxter, and as you can tell, for me this is quite an unusual book because it's a big hardback. I don't have that many hardbacks, and indeed this was sent to me by the publisher Goddess, so thank you to them and to Stevie who works for Reynolds and who offered me the chance to have this. This is my first ever book by Baxter, and it definitely hasn't been my last because there's another Baxter in this video. This is a science fiction short story collection. 3 or 4 of the short stories in this are to do with one of his other worlds that he developed in Proxima and Ultima. The other 12 or so short stories are based on several different small themes, about 4 or 5 on each different one. And overall, I really did enjoy pretty much every short story in it. There's some of them were stronger than others, but frankly, with short stories collections, that's always going to be the case. I really did enjoy this, and Stephen Baxter has already earned himself a place on my shelf for an author that I'm definitely going to be reading more by in the future, and I really am becoming a fan of his very, very quickly. And I would recommend this to anybody looking for a good place to start with Baxter. I mean, if you're not used to him, this is just a group of short stories, so one of them will probably get your attention and you will like it. All of them might not, but that's to be the case with short stories. Next up is The Prestige by Christopher Priest. I met Christopher Priest and actually got him to sign this earlier in the month at the Gallants Fest, as I mentioned at the start of the video. This is science fiction. Well, it's part of the Masterworks. I don't think it's too heavily science fiction. I think it's almost general fiction with light science fiction elements to it. I have done a separate review of this, which I will be uploading within the next week or two, so I'm not going to say too much now. Suffice to say, it is about 2 rival magicians in the late 1800s who are rivals to each other, and they have a great grudge and vengeance against one another, and they're permanently trying to outdo one another. And it's a interesting psychological study of obsession and what obsession can lead to. There's a film made of it in 2006 as well, which is equally brilliant. Both film and book are both brilliant. They are both very different from each other, and they both stand up extremely well by themselves. Film or book are equally good. One is not better than the other. In most cases with film and books, one is normally significantly better, but with these, it's really not. They're both fantastic, and I would recommend reading this to basically everybody. Next up is Redemption Arc by Alastair Reynolds. This is the second book in the Revelation Space trilogy, which is just there on my shelf. So this starts with Unspoiling the Revelation Space, then there's this one, and then the third book is called Absolution Gap, which I will be reading probably this week. I can't say too much about this because it's second in a trilogy, so there's not much to say about ruining the plot of both this book and indeed possibly even things in the third book. Suffice to say though, it is a hard science fiction book. It is also a space opera. Alastair Reynolds has education within astrophysics, so a myth comes across extremely well and extremely obviously because there's all the spatial type things, the information to do with stars and solar systems and such is extremely well written and extremely thoughtful. Frankly, you can tell that he knows what he's talking about really, really well. And I greatly like this book, and I'm really looking forward to getting onto the third and final book finally and seeing where the events are going to go, because they are very apocalyptic in nature and involve the whole human race and are on a very grand scale. And frankly, they're just brilliant, these books are. And I would highly recommend this to anybody who likes big, grand scale space opera books. The next book is Fairyland by Paul McAuley. Like Christopher Priest, I met Paul McAuley at Gallant's Fest in the middle of the month and got him to sign this particular book. This is a science fiction book, despite the name, Fairyland. However, related to the name, this is about fairies and magic, but not proper magic. It's essentially technology replacing magic, and it's got nanotechnology and biotechnology, sort of bioengineering. The plot is, frankly, extremely weird and extremely hard to explain. I'm not even going to attempt to describe it because, frankly, I'm just going to confuse myself. And confusion was something that basically went through this book heavily. I still don't know what to think about this book or indeed what to say about the book. I liked it, but I can't say why exactly because I'm still puzzled by it. It's got a certain something about it. I like Paul McAuley's short stories, which I've read several of in the last year, and I will definitely be looking out for more by him in the future. I would recommend this if you like science fiction and you're looking for something a bit different and frankly a bit unusual and a bit strange even, because this strangeness is really apparent from start to finish. Next up is Crashing Heaven by Robertson. This is a science fiction cyberpunk novel. I will be doing a separate review of this book within the next week or two as well, so I'm not going to say too much now. Suffice to say, the plot is extremely interesting. The characters are extremely good. The main two characters, who are Jack Foster and Hugo Fist, are really interesting. Hugo Fist is a sentient AI program who resides in Jack's head. He's hardwired into his brain, and he also happens to be a sentient AI killing machine. Sounds weird, actually makes perfect sense in the book. The interaction between the two main characters is frankly beautiful to see. I know it's just really funny at times. It's also really grim at times, and frankly, Al Robertson will do very well if he can keep up this quality. This is his debut novel, and frankly, he should do really well in the future because this was really, really good. This was one of my favourite books I've read for some time. It really was exceptional. Next up, we have more Stephen Baxter, and this time it's Proxima and Ultima. These are the two books that some of the short stories in Obelisk are from. These two books are science fiction. They are hard science fiction. The idea of the book, which I'm not going to go too much into because frankly I'm doing a separate review of these two as well within the next few weeks, are about humanity and also life in general place within the universe. This is on a grand scale. Humanity finds a way to go to Proxima, which is the nearest star to our own. Some people go there to do a pre-colonization mission. Various unusual things are found both in Proxima system and in our solar system, and events start to spiral outwards in really weird and unexpected ways. The first book is pure hard science fiction. The second book becomes something slightly different. I can't say what because it's obviously the second book, so I'd spoil things, but both books are written really well. The characters are not neglected and the ideas are really unusual and really bizarre, but the sort of idea that I personally like in hard science fiction books. So I greatly did like these books, and I'm definitely going to read more Baxter in the future. Next up is Redshirts by John Scalzi. This is my first ever book I've read by Scalzi, and it won't be my last. I didn't love the book, but I didn't hate it either. It was pretty good. There's a few rough edges, I thought, but it did write quite well. This is a humorous science fiction, as you might have been able to tell by the title, and also it was talked about a fair bit on BookTube a few years ago, I believe. The name Redshirts is related to Star Trek, in particular on the original Star Trek, on away missions when Kirk and Spock and everybody went on the away missions. There was always somebody in a red shirt. That person in a red shirt normally either got murdered in some horrible way, got vaporized or turned into like a puddle or whatever, or generally got mutilated or something equally horrible happened to them. Very occasionally they might survive, but that was fairly rare. This is basically Scalzi being very sarcastic on the idea of the show. This is also what you class as, I believe, meta writing, because the book is aware that it's a book. The characters are aware that their life, and indeed their sort of life aboard this starship, which is obviously taken off Star Trek, is fictional. So they want to find out how to stop everybody in the red shirt from getting horribly murdered, mission after mission. So the book's aware of itself, the characters are aware of what they are and where they are, and it's pretty weird, especially the end, but I did like it, and I will read more Scalzi. Just ideally something a bit in a different way of writing I would like. So I don't know what I'm going to try next, but I'll see. The penultimate book is Executive Power by Flynn. This is the 6th book in the Mishap series. There are 14 of them in total. There won't be any more in the series because Flynn sadly died about 2 years ago, actually just as I started getting into this series, weirdly enough. And Mishap is the name of the main character. He's essentially a CIA assassin, obviously not an official one. In this book, his identity starts to become more well known because of the events from the previous book, and he has a difficulty being this unknown ghost and an assassin, because when people and indeed other countries know that he's a CIA person and an assassin, it becomes difficult and the plot becomes quite complex in places. I didn't rate it too highly because there was a few annoying characters in it, one in particular that returns again, and I expect this character will be in many other books, sadly. I wish this character wasn't in the book, but overall it's a good, solid thriller with action and political elements to it, and basically I needed something a bit different from all the science fiction that I had just previously read. And finally, the last thing I read on my Kindle, so I don't have a physical copy to show you, and I'll have to read out the title because it's quite long, and that is Lightspeed magazine, the June 2016 issue, which is a special issue, and that is People of Colour Destroy Science Fiction. Now normally I don't mention short story magazines because that's what I talk to Rachel about during a monthly live show that we do. However, this was a special issue. It was extremely long. It was nearly 500 pages in total, I believe. I'm not sure because it's obviously on ebook. And the short stories that are in it are all by authors who are essentially non-white, and this was obviously to address diversity within literature, because of course white authors are generally thought of as dominating, which frankly they tend to do. Some of the short stories in this were good, some were mediocre, some were not particularly good in my personal opinion. That is the situation with pretty much all short story magazines. There'll always be something that you really enjoy, there'll always be something that's okay, and there'll always be something that you think is generally pretty terrible. They are generally science fiction based. Some of them are sort of half science fiction, half fantasy. It's an interesting mixture, and I really did enjoy it overall. There was some non-fiction in there, and some various articles about literature itself, and a few excerpts for books. So if this sounds interesting, I would recommend this because there are quite a few authors in it Many of them, actually nearly all of them, I hadn't heard of or come across before. So this is a good way to find new authors and new ways of thinking about books, frankly. And I'm really glad that I read it. So with that said, that's everything I read for September. It was a pretty varied month overall, and quite a few books read, as you can see by the rather large tower that I'm trying to carry without hopefully dropping them, so it's quite risky. If you've read any of these, then please let me know. Would like to read any of them, and we can have a interesting talk in the comments. All my social media links can be found in the description box below, as they always are. And with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.